Welcome back, everybody, to the Ladder of Light. We are live here today with a special friend that has decided to climb up the ladder today. It's Kyle Levan. Kyle, welcome.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Kyle, how
What's
has
up, Jake?
life been, man?
Life has been crazy. It's been a roller coaster. Lots of, here and there, lots of ups and downs. Came out of a pretty difficult season, I would say, just recently. Starting to kind of get to the other side of some stuff. So started to see things in a different light a little bit and get to the other side of kind of where I was at and kind of what I was feeling spiritually. And just been noticing a transition lately and kind of working my way out of some of the places that I was in. So I would say I'm in a decent place at the moment, getting better on the rise.
That's beautiful, man. I know
Yes,
we just
sir.
had a powerful Bible study just before this that
Yep.
really lifted our spirits and was able to get us into this just spiritual mood here tonight. So
hmm
thank you for coming here. I know that you've been going through some things. I've been going through some things, some
Yep.
transitions,
hmm
and we're here to just keep going upwards.
Yep.
And I
Heck
know
yeah.
I have some great questions for you today. I know there's some things that you want to discuss,
hmm
and we'll get right into it.
Heck
So
yeah. Let's do this.
I,
Let's do it.
I just wanted to ask you first question: why do you have such a strong desire for well-being?
All right. So just recently, I would say I've started to kind of change my mindset a lot of, I spent a long time in my life, um, kind of doing things to go against my body, I would say, to kind of hurt myself subconsciously without even knowing it. Um, and I think a lot of that has to do with some childhood hurt that I have, where I've spent a lot of time since my parents' divorce, really, I think almost subconsciously doing things to kind of keep myself down or kind of tend to some of the pain in my life. When in all reality, a lot of those things that I've been doing to almost comfort myself have actually, in the long run, been destroying me over time. And I didn't realize it a lot along the way. And because of that, I mean, I think it's easy in general for people to use things in life to comfort them, to try to make them feel better about what's going on in their own lives. And so, whether that be the food that we eat, or whether that be the entertainment we consume, whatever it might be. I think there's a lot of things we use to kind of distract ourselves, where we're never actually getting to the core problems that are going on in our lives, the root issues of why we're actually doing all these things. And so, a shift that I've had recently, I would say, is I'm trying to differentiate between pleasure and purpose. And I think there's a lot of things in my life that I've done over time that have just been for pleasure, to try to kind of help my situation or cope with my situation. But in all reality, in the long run, they've been taking away from my overall purpose. Um, and so I spent a lot of years doing things like partaking in drinking and smoking and eating unhealthily and all these different things, to try to kind of cope and to try to deal with what I go through. Um, and in all reality, those things have never been helpful to where I'm actually trying to go. They've just been destroying me. And I don't know why it took so long for me to figure this out. It took a long road for me to actually sit here and say, I don't want to hurt myself the way that I have in the past. I want what's better for me now. Um, and so I'm trying to kind of transition into eating healthier, getting back into exercising. I've been an athlete my whole life, but kind of, spent a while away from it recently. So I'm trying to get back into just doing things that are important for my own physical health, which I think also plays into our mental health, which then also plays into our spiritual health. So like those three things are all combined. And if you're not healthy physically, it's hard to be healthy mentally. If you're not healthy mentally, it's hard to be healthy spiritually. Like there's just all hand in hand. So really working on every aspect of my life in order to be the best self that I can be. Um, and I think when we do that, we make more room for God to also work and to do His purpose in us. So I'm trying to transition into having a healthier body for Him, um, And I also, so something I wrote down some points earlier in my notebook, and something I thought about recently is, um, if the Holy Spirit is clean and pure, right? Then why would the Holy Spirit want to come and live in a space that isn't clean and isn't welcoming for him? I know if I'm somebody who is taking care of myself and is living cleanly, and then I might go into a dirtier space, it's not as welcoming for me to be there, right? So I'm
Yes.
thinking about it in terms of the Holy Spirit living in me. Where would the Holy Spirit want to reside? I think that's somewhere that's probably more inviting to him when we take care of our bodies and whenever we represent our health better. So those are some things that I've been thinking about recently. We also we also live in a world that's glorifying a lot of things that aren't good for us recently. Like, they're coming out with new flavors of everything. I don't know if you saw recently. They came out with the flavor of Peeps Pepsi, which I think sounds disgusting, but they're coming out with all different forms of anything, right? To try to get us to bite and to go down this path. And I think when you look at it, all these companies are trying to kind of make a profit, capitalize off of people, but in all reality, what they're doing is they're just sending people down this kind of this path of their own destruction, which ultimately is just making one person after the next kind of fall in line with these bad habits.
They
And
don't
that's
care
what they
about it.
want. Yeah,
They don't care
that's
about
what they
it.
want. They would rather us become addicted to sugary foods. They would rather us become addicted to fast food. They want us to become enticed by these things so that we just fall in line and they can make a profit off of us. Because if we're under the control of, oh, we're gonna buy that because we've already given into all these other things. Anytime they bring out something new, they know we're gonna buy it. They can have control over us because then we're not even thinking outside of outside of what's actually going on. It's a way to keep people suppressed. It's a way to keep people in what they're going through. And you see it even more today, the rise of how bad mental health is for people, right? A lot more people today dealing with depression, a lot more people dealing with anxiety. And we're asking these questions of why is this happening? And a lot of people aren't asking themselves, are you continuing to like take care of yourself? Are you continuing to um, exercise? Are you continuing to make good habits where you're eating healthy? A lot of those things lead to the poor mental health, and we've almost lost sight in some ways of, hey, we're actually hurting ourselves, and then wondering why we're hurt. And
Exactly.
so I think it's a matter of I don't know, kind of pushing into figuring out, how do I take care of myself in order to not fall into the same trap that, I mean, so many people are just kind of biting the hook, and just going down this. And I'm not here to say either you can't enjoy food, you can't enjoy things that are pleasurable, but um, it's almost to a point where it's like so much food is that
Addiction.
way,
It's
so
becoming
much food is
addiction.
that way nowadays that they're just continuing to keep people on that line. And then you see people's physical, mental health decline, and we wonder why. It's not necessarily just the world that we live in today, but it's also how we're dieting, how we're taking care of ourselves, whether or not we're getting the rest we need, um, whether or not we're eating healthy, drinking enough water. Just the basic things to take care of yourselves can really make the difference. So I'm trying to step into that more, live in that a little bit more than I used to. Just because for so long, it's something I neglected within myself. Um, there's a lot. I never thought that I was sitting there hurting myself the way I was, but it was almost subconsciously me not taking care of myself in order to not actually get to the root of what's gone on in my life. Um, I think we spend a lot of time going down kind of like this trail with that, and then we get to a point, and I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to feel like crap anymore. I'm tired of my body not feeling the way it should be. Um, And so it's kind of a turnaround for me to just focus more on my well-being, um, to focus more on that for the sake of living a better life for God, and just allowing Him to be able to even be more active in my life. I think those are important steps. So
Like you were saying, Kyle, those things really, even though we don't see it sometimes, the getting involved with those, the Pepsi, the colas, the all those
mhm,
unhealthy things,
mhm,
like you said, it's not bad that we, to not enjoy those things, but
mhm,
we get addicted to things so quickly. And those
right.
things will low key bring us down to a certain vibrations, to a certain
Yep.
level, to where
Hmm.
we can't even focus on God, or whatever it
Yep.
is somebody's believes in or worships.
Yep.
And it takes us to the darkness.
It ends up keeping us down more than we realize.
And,
Yeah.
and we both shared with each other. We both been in the darkness. I've dealt with
Hmm.
sexual sin my entire life. It destroyed my life in ways that
Hmm.
I could barely even recover. But I'm here now.
Hmm.
We had to
Yeah.
get back up. We have to get that perspective to where we don't
Hmm.
go that direction anymore, to where
Yep.
we become who that we truly are, stepping into
Yep.
purpose.
Right.
And about that darkness, Kyle, like, that leads me into my next question.
Hmm.
What advice would you have for someone going through a dark time and appearing trapped in their darkness? Because I know we've
Yep.
both been there. I know you've been
Yep.
there. I know I've been there,
Hmm.
near
Yep.
suicidal, near
Hmm.
just the darkest of places. What advice would you
Hmm.
have for somebody going through something like that?
Yeah, I think I think a lot of times when we get in those places, it's because of maybe some big event in our lives or a series of events, um, to where something happens and spiritually, what the enemy likes to do in those moments is he likes to capitalize on those moments, right? Like you might have a really horrible event happen and the enemy immediately starts whispering, this, you could have done something to prevent this, right? Or you're never going to find your way out of this, or um this happened because of this in your life, or and we start to believe all these lies, right, that the enemy wants to start pouring into our head, and it's an easy moment for us to actually take on those lies and have that identity in our mind. I think we get caught in moments in seasons of things being tough because we almost get drawn into these thoughts that we have about what's going on, and we take on that identity to say, oh, this situation defines me, this is who I am. We feel shame from it. Um, we tend to sit in those moments, and that's where the depression comes, because you're staying in those moments for too long, when God actually wants to free us from those moments. And so the devil is prime at feeding in these lies, right? At that time, he wants you to be convinced that you're not good enough, you're not gonna make your way out of your situation, that there's no light at the end of the tunnel, that, oh, why don't you just end your life? What you're going through isn't actually worth fighting for. Um, and in all reality, those moments, that's completely taking us away from what God might be trying to say in those moments. And so I think people have these moments and they're not ready for these big catastrophic events in their life to happen, right? They weren't prepared for anything like that to happen. So when something like that happens, it's almost like a whole switch gets turned. Your whole world crashes, right? The whole everything falls down. Um, and that kind of refers to a verse in the Bible where it talks about how we build our house on firm foundation. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that when things are going smoothly in your life, when nothing is going wrong, in those moments where like everything is good, so I don't need to build a foundation with God. I don't need to build this firm foundation for when the storms of life come, because the storms of life are gonna come. We live in a world where there's storms, and whether or not you're prepared, that they come. And so I think in those seasons of things not necessarily being bad in your life, that is when it's important to work on your foundation. That's when it's important to build your house on a firm, solid rock. Um, because the moment that bad thing hits, your house is coming down if you don't.
Hmm.
If you're not prepared for the storm, it's your house is crumbling in that moment. And then when your house crumbles, that's when the enemy comes in and says, "This is your fault. You're not good enough. You made a mistake here. This is why you have to live in this place." And all the while, God is trying to make his way back into your life, but we're not actually we're not actually with God because our foundation wasn't firm enough with him to begin with. And so I think it's all a matter of like in those seasons when things aren't necessarily as rough or rocky, that's when you really need to be putting in that work, and more work than we even realize because we're at war with the world around us. We're at war with the sin that lives within us, and so we have to put in even more work to to build that foundation, right? Like it's not easy, and a lot of people will have a moment with God, and then things will go bad again, right? They'll have a spiritual moment, and then things will fall off, and they'll be like, "Why is this happening? I was just worshiping God. I was just sitting with God. Why am I? Why are things going bad again?" It's because we tend to try to base our faith off of moments instead of actually building a foundation firm enough so that no matter what storm of life comes, your house isn't tumbling over. And then people tend to blame God. They say, "I was worshiping you. I was praying to you.
Yep.
Why did this happen? Why did things fall apart?" Well, it happened because you can't just season God into your life on top of the chaos that happens and expect for you to be okay and secure whenever the waves of life and the storms of life are actually a lot more vicious than we as people are made to handle. We're not meant to handle these things spiritually. And so I don't know, we get it twisted up to where the bad thing happens, then all of a sudden it's God's fault when really we're at war to begin with, and we have to focus on the fact that we need a serious foundation so that when these things happen, we can still focus on God. And I don't know, last year in my dark season, it was one of the darkest years of my life. Last year, I would say, and also 2016. Um, and I would say I really lost sight of God kind of leading up to that. Um, but then whenever it's not as if my faith has ever left me, but I haven't made God the main thing in my life as much as I've needed to. And so last year, whenever things go downhill, right, that's really a dagger in me because the enemy's really at that point trying to keep me down. He's trying to keep me away. He knows that I have something to do with God, so he's trying to pin me and keep me in a place. And all the while, this is taking place and I'm losing sight of God. And in all reality, God never left me. He was never gone from me. Um, what happened is I wasn't ready for the storm because I hadn't built a firm enough foundation previously before what took place last year happened. And so whenever it did happen, my whole house went down. And and I was sitting in the ruins of that for a while. Um, and so my encouragement is to spend time working on your foundation with God when things aren't rocky. Because it's all the more hard whenever something happens in your life and things fall apart. And then you start blaming God, and then your relationship with God gets even further distanced. And then you completely lose sight. And then you say, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with God. If God, if God is real, then why would this have even happened? And He's not even helping me out of this situation." And we just don't actually realize how strong the powers of spirituality are and can have on us, the grip that they can have on us. Um, and so yeah, to me, it's all about foundation, building that firm foundation. That's a key word in my life right now is foundation. I want to be more foundational. I know I have a foundation in my faith, but I want to dig even deeper and create an even more safe and secure home with God that I know that I can live in so that the enemy doesn't even have a chance to whisper those lies when something bad happens.
And
I'm still standing.
what I'm seeing in the spirit right now is, you know, whenever we're not leaning on him for our foundation, when we're
Hmm.
just going out there doing our thing, just blowing things out of proportion like we do. And
Hmm.
then that wind comes in, slaps us right in the
Yeah.
face. We don't know what to do. We're
Right.
crumbling.
We're not
Like
ready.
I said, we lead ourselves to potential suicide. We lead ourselves to going
Hmm.
down the wrong path to deeper depression.
Yep.
But when we build our house on solid foundation and not sand,
Hmm.
we're able to, if we fall, we can
Yep.
build upon those
Right.
things. When
Right.
we fall again, whenever this happens, this person dies in our life, whatever it
Hmm.
is, we can
Hmm.
build on that. Say, okay, I'm gonna keep going. My mind is up. My eyes are up. My eyes are towards
Hmm.
Jesus. My eyes are towards whatever that thing is. We
Right.
focus on ourselves, but also focusing on Him at the same time, building
Hmm.
ourselves up to become exactly whatever it is that we are trying to strive to be in this
Right.
life. You will make it there.
Hmm.
Every struggle that we go through produces strength in our life if we
Right.
don't give up. And
Yep.
not giving up is exactly what Jesus did not do.
Right.
Send
And I
his
think too.
cross.
Sorry. Go ahead. I think
Good.
yeah, sorry, I kind of cut you off. I was gonna say too, I think it's important to expect that the storms of life are gonna come. Because I think if you try so hard to live your life like in a way where you're trying to avoid bad things happening, you're really not going to be firm. Some things are out of our control, right?
Mhm.
Some things we just can't control. And so you can't sit here and try to control all aspects of life when some things just simply aren't in our control. And so I think it's important to know, hey, bad things in this life happen, they come, bad like waves of the enemy trying to destroy you are going to come, and they can come, but they're just gonna brush up against my house. They're not knocking that thing over. If I'm standing firm with God, that those waves can come, they can hit me, they can crash into my house. But guess what? My house is on a firm foundation. My house isn't going anywhere. Like the storms of life can come and they can hit me, and I can even know that they're going to be coming, but nothing's going to happen to me because you're secure in that rock, you're secure on that foundation. And so I'm really just trying to focus on seeing it that way and understanding like, okay, bad things happen, bad things come. Are we prepared for them? Are you prepared? If you're not prepared, your house is going to come crumbling down. And then that's where the enemy really likes to have you sit in that place. And sometimes people never come out of that place. Sometimes people never recover from that place. Like the enemy wants to keep you down, wants to keep things destructed in your life to the point where you never see the light again. And that's his goal, you know, is to keep you down, is to keep you suppressed. The enemy is trying to lead you to death, where God is trying to lead you to life. And there's a difference between that.
And
Which is why I think people get to the point of wanting something like killing themselves because the enemy is taking you down this road to the point where you say, "There's nothing left for me. There's no hope for me. This is it. I don't have anything else to live for." The enemy wanted to get you to that place, and when you understand that God is life and new life and life to the fullest, it's the complete opposite of that. So why are we not focused and running to the Father, the one that wants to lead to keeping us down this road, you know? Um, so I don't know. I think it's more important about preparing yourself before the battle even comes, preparing yourself before the storm even comes. In those moments where things aren't going crazy, where things aren't going wild. Because a lot of times in those moments, it's easy for us to forget God and say, "Oh, I don't need God. Everything's going good in my life." Well, in all reality, like that is also deception when things are going good in your life, because then your faith becomes in that. Your faith becomes in the fact that everything's going good for me, to the point where you don't think you need God. And even in those moments, we should be giving glory to Him and praise for things even going smoothly. So there's there's a lot there, but these are just some things that I've learned from where I was at last year. Um, I'm kind of coming out of the other side of a lot of pain and a lot of struggle.
So working
and a
through.
lot of things that I went through. And I'm not even sitting here to say I have anything figured out completely. I mean, I'm working on building my foundation. I'm working on putting the pieces together. I'm still fighting sin daily. It's not anything that I have figured out. It's not anything that I'm even fully clean of, you know. It's just these are things that I'm noticing that in my life where I want to actually make improvements and start working on uh, building a better building a better home for myself with God. And that includes the whole physical health aspect that I was talking about and mental health and all of it. You know, it all plays into itself. So um, yeah, it's a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. I think
Well,
we
thank
all are.
you, Kyle. Thank you so much for your time today.
Hmm.
Thank you for being
Yes,
so
sir.
vulnerable and
For
open.
sure.
That's what
For
this
sure.
place is for. It's for people to get their voice
Yep.
heard, for
Yep.
them to get themselves out there, and
Yep.
also to have good discussion, good godly discussion, and whatever, whoever, everybody's invited, and you are
Yep.
not alone. And
Yep.
that's the whole thing about this. The enemy wants to isolate us to where we think
Hmm.
that we're alone. That's where I was whenever I thought I was alone and carrying everything that I'd done and gone through all by myself. But I
Hmm.
learned then that I wasn't alone, that I had people that were with me, people who were going through the same things I was. And it brought
Hmm.
so much healing into my life, more healing than going to any church service has ever done.
Yep.
It's not,
Yep.
it's not about a church service, getting together with the body
Yep.
and growing together as believers and loving each other without judgment.
Hmm.
I've gone through so many things in my life to where I cannot judge another soul. That is
Yep.
literally why I am here today. That is why I
Right.
do not judge anybody. That is exactly the way why I am the way that I am. And
Hmm.
not everybody's going to understand my story.
Right.
Not everybody's
Yep.
going to understand Kyle's story. Not everybody's going to understand your story, whoever you are that's watching this.
Hmm.
But most importantly, you need to know that you're loved. So
Hmm.
thank you, Kyle, for
Yep.
climbing up the ladder today. Keep
Yes,
climbing,
sir.
keep going up. We are going to heaven someday, brother. We're going to be together and with all of our fellow believers. And I'm
Hmm.
so thankful to have you in my life
Yes,
and
sir.
to be able to hear and witness just what God has done in your life, man.
Yes,
So
sir.
thank you for the time
Thank
that
you
you,
for having me.
yeah,
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you, Jake.
yes,
Doing great things.
yes, sir. I love you, and you're always welcome back.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Love you too, man.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Blessings to you all. Be with you. Oh,
Whoops.
nice.
Drop the phone.
Yeah. Love you guys. Peace.
Peace. Thank